here's sort of a Zwift race analysis mixed in with a guide on how to execute a Zwift time trial. So here in the clip that I'm showing right now, you can see that I'm doing the HEries race series, and there's around 40 people who are doing the race. And something unique about the Zwift time trial module is that it boosts you to 20 miles per hour as soon as you leave the gates when it's your time. It is a rolling start like normal time trials, so all of that will be familiar if you are someone who does time trials. So here you can see in this video that I'm doing around 160 watts-ish, 160 to 170, and my FTP was 158 before this race, and it increased to 164 by the end of the race. So it's a 7.8 mile long race on one lap of Sprinter's Playground. It is the first race of, I believe, 6 or 8 in the series, and the series consists of points race, time trials, scratch races, pursuit races, and I believe that's it. So this is the first week of the race, and like most series, it starts out with an individual time trial. One rider that I'm keeping an eye on in this race is Brackens from ATP, because he is one of the stronger riders in this race, and he is a rider who is probably around my level, and he is he started, I believe, 15 seconds before me, so I'll be watching for the gap to make sure that I don't fall too far behind his pacing. So you can see here that there are some A riders passing, and I'm passing some C and D riders. Since it's a rolling start, it's also a mass start race, meaning all the categories start together. So you will see some C riders, A riders, and D riders mixed into the race. Before this race, I actually bought a new bike specifically for this race, because I knew that my current tri bike was no longer the fastest. So I picked up the Scott, I forget what it's called, I'll come back to that. But it is the latest Scott bike in game, and it is the current fastest bike, tied with the new Felt IA. I didn't choose the new Felt IA because it still had mechanical shifters rather than electronic, and personally I think it looks better with electronic on Zwift TT bikes. So back onto the topic of pacing in Zwift time trials. Pacing is very similar to in real life races. You will want to keep your watts pretty steady and slowly ramp up your power. I didn't do this the best because I was surging on the climbs. It probably wasn't the best idea, but in the end, it ended up working out for me. So I'd recommend maybe doing threshold for most of the time, then maybe the final 5-10 minutes, bring it up to zone 5, which is going to be a lightish red that you can see I'm pointing to with this arrow. So you can see that the gap has grown to around 20 seconds from me and the other ATP rider that I was keeping an eye on. So I start to surge, and I'm getting worried because I know that I am falling behind on my pacing, and I start to bring up the power. Okay, some more tips on having a faster time trial is to use a good bike for the route you're doing. So in order to know what kind of TT bike you're going to need for the route you're doing, you're going to want to look at the elevation. If it seems pretty flat to you, which is most TT courses, you're going to want to use a disc wheel with one of the top aero frames. So in this race, I actually bought the Scott bike for this, since it is the fastest on flats, and this course is pretty flat, and I'm a lighter rider, so I have the advantage on the climbs. You can see here that my pacing was not the best, and it probably could have been better. So something I would have done differently was continue to stay around 160 to 170 until the climbs, Then on the climbs, surge to around 7 watts per kg to really make a difference, because on the climbs is where you will lose the most time and gain the most time depending on how you execute it. Another thing you want to remember when doing a Zwift time trial, like any time trial, every second counts. So the interesting thing about this race was that that really came into play, and the separation between second and fifth place, which was me, was only 3 seconds. So if I had done the course a total of 3 seconds faster, I would have gotten second or tied for second, which would have made a huge difference in the standings and rankings. At this point in the race, I am really suffering. I know that there's not much left, but I'm just grinding on the pedals right now, and I'm putting out every watt I can. Based off my graph, you can probably tell that I am suffering because I have been in zone 5 for the past 10 minutes with some zone 6 mixed in. In a bit here, you're going to see that I'm going to start to fade, and I won't be doing the same power that I was doing before. So I'll be easing off slightly because I am exhausted, and I didn't pace this time trial particularly well because I was really focused on catching up to C brackets, which I did not end up doing. So what I should have done was kept a steadier power on the flats, then surged on the climbs. For some people, time trials can be very hard, especially getting motivation and having the right mindset. What I tend to do is just think, oh, only 0.6 left, and then I am finished with the race, and then I just do the math, and I think, oh, that's around 1 to 2 minutes, so I decide to just put my head down and keep grinding. So going to the arcade here, I think this is where I lost a lot of time, because it's a pan flat area, and I was only going 26 miles per hour, and if I had probably surged on this area instead, I probably could have taken 3rd or 4th place. So here you can see that C Brackens is surging, and he's just giving it everything he has to the line. And the interesting thing is, I did a lot more watts per kg, but since he's a heavier rider and he was doing more watts, in the end that's going to win him the race because of the way that Zwift calculates rider speed. Coming into the finishing stretch here, I can see that C Brackens from ATP is just finished, and I'm giving it everything I have right now to the line. There's less than 0.1 left, and I know that he's going to be pretty close to a new FTP for me, and I'm hoping for around a podium spot with the effort that I put into this. And at first it says that I get second, but I actually got 5th. I averaged 175 watts, which is 5 watts per kg, so I'm pretty happy with that. So overall, it's a very good time trial for me, and it was more of setting a really high power than actually placing really high, because I know that in the future races in the herd racing series I will do better, and I still have a pretty good shot at winning the series. So here I realized that I have less than 2 minutes to get a new FTP, and I checked my average power. I'm about to check my average power here, and I'm going to see that it's like 176. So I know that if I keep grinding, I will get it to a new FTP, because my previous best 20-minute power was around 169-ish, 168. Okay, so here I've just got a few seconds left, and once I get to the end of the 2 minutes remaining, so I got the 20 minutes, I got the welcome new FTP detected screen. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.